Hello, divine creation, divine marvels, children of God. Welcome. A warm welcome to anyone who's new to this channel. And of course, a welcome back to my return viewers. In this moment, I'm feeling delighted to be here and making a video. I'm also delighted it's a little bit before sunrise. You can maybe see, well, that's more the street light. You can't really see the dawn is happening, and it's also Christmas Eve, which I've had quite the dance with Christianity and Jesus. Still don't have answers. I think very highly of Jesus. So there's all these positive things. I just did the morning prayer, so I'm a happy camper. But mostly, I'm happy to be here, to be sharing a little bit of what I found out about Neo-Advaita, Neo-Nonduality, fake non-duality, false non-duality, watered down non-duality. I don't even want to call it Neo-Advaita. Some days I don't even want to call it Neo-Nonduality because it's so far from actual non-duality. And what's been coming to me recently is just how dangerous Neo-Advaita is. Here's a simple example. Neo-Advaita over and over and over will tell someone, you are divine. Some of them will even go so far as to say, you are God. Now, whether or not that's true, each person has to find out for themselves. However, what's important is, in terms of Neo-Advaita, is it a good idea to tell that to people? And when to tell that to people? Because it's understood in actual non-duality that if you focus on that too soon, it'll make you arrogant. The real foundation of non-duality is humility, which is a little paradoxical, right? Because the whole message of non-duality is there's no separation between you and God, you and the divine. So how on earth could humility have any part in that? Well, the thing is actual non-duality is based on training the ego. Fake non-duality, it's not based on, but what it does is it aggravates and inflates the ego. Actual non-duality recognizes what is the process to lead someone to the living of there's no separation between anything. Neo-Advaita is more like a church or a preacher who's like over and over and over again, there is no separation. You are that. You are the supreme. Da, 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 da. It has no systematic process to lead one to the actual living of it. Like if you go to a church, like I'm thinking of a Protestant Christian church, you'll hear over and over like, Jesus is God, Jesus is the only way to salvation, da 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 da. The reason why they repeat it is because they don't have a way, a path, a legitimate, by legitimate I just mean that works, have a legitimate, valid path to lead someone to the direct realization of these things. That's why they've got to repeat it. Same thing with Neo-Advaita. There's no coherent, systematic, functional, legitimate path to lead someone to the actual non-dual realization. So there's just got to be repetition. And through repetition, you get a little hit of the truth, right? But it's not sustainable. And worse, in the case of Neo-Advaita, it actually does harm because, as I said at the beginning, it inflates the ego. And it doesn't properly train the ego. Actual non-duality is based on training the ego. Neo-Advaita is based on kind of suppressing or just like positive thinking your way to realization. It'd be like, imagine that someone's goal is to become a good at sports. Actual non-duality would be like, okay, well, let's stretch a little bit and let's do some calisthenics. Let's do some drills and let's talk a little strategy. There's all these things, right? And Neo-Advaita is, you're a great basketball player, go play, and like throw the person on the court. And then to boot, here's where it gets tricky. Because if that happened in an actual sport, you'd be like, oh, like I suck. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't play this sport. Like that would be very apparent, right? But here's why Neo-Advaita is so dangerous. Because if you do Neo-Advaita practices and you think Neo-Advaita thoughts, you will have an experience. You will have a temporary kind of non-dual experience. And then you think, oh my God, I've got it. This is true. This is real. And then on top of that, you've got these false teachers being like, that's it. You're on the right path. Keep going. And on top of it, then you have a community of other deluded people being like, this is the truth. You're doing great. Keep going. So to go back to this metaphor of the basketball, so again, actual non-duality, they'll like train you. They'll, in basketball, my basketball metaphor, they'll train you, they'll teach you, they'll guide you along to learning how to become a good basketball player. Neo-Advaita, it's like, you're a great basketball player, go play. And so you go on the court and you're like, I don't know what's going on. And like, okay, yes, I'm playing basketball, but like, oh. And here's what gets really tricky. Imagine that the referee was like, you're doing great. And imagine that the other players were like, wow, you're so good. And imagine your coach is like, yeah, you're rocking it. And you're like, So basically, you've just been given false feedback, delusional false feedback. And you start to think like, oh, I'm good at basketball, when really you suck. Like you don't even score a single basket. And you're like, I'm good at basketball. That's why Neo-Advaita is so dangerous. And it's a little more tricky because in my metaphor, like you don't even score a basket. But Neo-Advaita, it'd be like you score baskets because you have a non-dual experience. But Neo-Advaita doesn't teach people properly, so then they can become, not everybody, but it's very easy to become addicted to these non-dual experiences. And worse, it's a very deep topic, but nothing is actually changing. It's like you're just having a feeling. And in the long term, it's not going to change anything. And it can very, very well actually take people in a downward direction. So regardless of what your belief or non-belief is, I wish you happy holy days. And if you celebrate Christmas, a beautiful Christmas. And thank you so much for dropping by. Running around.